what we did last time?
So
There was
I wasn't available last weekend and to the previous weekend. I didn't attend two sessions of yours.
Okay.
So today would be my first session with you.
Oh, okay. Uh, Arvind?
Sir, I missed your last session, though I attended the first session on talent management. So,
Okay. So Yamini has joined. Yamini, any recollection of the last session? So I think Yamini is a silent observer.
if you can just give a brief, like in 2 to 5 minutes, what you actually covered in second session, that will be great, if it is possible.
Yeah, sure. I will. I had hoped to uh, hear it from some of the people who were there. So that kind of helps, the recollection. So broadly, what we had covered was, a bit of the process of talent management, starting from the way talent is identified. Then you look at the talent gaps, uh, high level uh, designing, recruiting, and hiring plans, or whether you want to develop internal talent. So the debate between the two, and different models of talent management in the sense cultural skills, financial skills, sales skills. Also, we had looked at the nine blocker. We will look at the nine blocker again today. Uh, so that is a very important tool that can be used for talent management. So those are some of the things that we had gone through, and also we had touched a little bit on succession planning, which we will do in greater detail later on. But we had kind of gone through a template. Today, we will talk about talent management strategy, some of the things that various companies do, and also use models like the nine blocker. We will also look at the 8 best practices according to McKinsey on talent management, and how Toyota handles one dimension of talent management, which is the initial training. What do they do differently, which makes them very successful. So those are some of the things that we will be looking at today. So I will just share my screen. And since some of you, I think Priyanka has joined for the first time, and Arvind, you are joining after some time, please feel free to ask questions. Don't let me be, let me do all the talking, because all of you are working professionals. You have a lot of experience. You have worked in different companies, and each company has its own culture, its own learning experience. So you can share those over here. And while probably I have the maximum years of experience in this group, but cumulatively, we all have learned a lot, which you can share on this forum. So just one second. Okay. So talent management is the gamut of all the practices that any organization undertakes to ensure that it has optimized its talent, uh, the human capital in the organization, and is able to leverage the human capital in the organization to the best possible extent. Now, this is easier said than done. As we discussed in the first lecture, that more and more companies have accepted that the way you handle your talent defines your human capital, and human capital is the probably the most important differentiator. You can get enormous financial support, you can have great products, you can have good procedures and processes, but unless the quality of people in the company are good, you cannot hold all of these different things together. So therefore, talent management is very underplayed. It's not given the due importance that it deserves, but it is something which is very, very critical. So if one were to look at the process, you start with identify what kind of talent do you need, and that has to, of course, be aligned to your vision of the company, the mission of the company. What is it that you are setting out to achieve? All of that. So your talent management has to be completely aligned to your mission. What is it you are here for? To your vision. What is it that you wish to do? And your talent management process will tell you how you are going to go and achieve that. So therefore, identifying is very important, being clear on the kinds of people and capability that will create value for your organization now and into the future. Now, obviously, the kind of talent that you need, you may not find completely in ready shape in the market. So what do? You bring them in and then you build the desired skills and capabilities in your team so that they are completely aligned to the expectations in your organization. And that is a continuous process. It doesn't happen in a one-off manner. It happens in a continuous way. And then when you have the right talent in the right place, you deploy those skills so that, for example, you have your crack sales team, and you know that your sales team this year has to grow the top line by 30%, the bottom line by 10%. So you deploy your sales team, people whom you have hired from outside, people whom you have developed inside, then you align them to go and get your targets. And last but not the least, you engage with them. How do you engage with the talent? By ensuring that you have a conducive environment, you have a enabling environment, the talent is able to reach their potential, and they are constantly engaged with the work they have at hand. So basically, net, they are positively motivated. Motivation plays a very critical role. We will talk about that later when we talk about employee engagement. Motivation is very critical, and your talent management has to factor that in. So, why do we need TM at all? Before we talk about strategy, why do we need it at all? We see that in most organizations, talent management, in the first session, we had seen some statistics where we saw that talent management is not a strength generally of most companies. It is done absent-mindedly somewhere in the background, and that's it. Very rarely does it get reviewed regularly at the board level. The board level reviews a lot of financial statements, but not very often will they be reviewing the headcount, the people policies, the people issues of the organization. So sometimes you have key roles which remain unfulfilled for long periods. Very often you get emergency hires from outside, and they may or may not click. One doesn't know. Then key roles sometimes get filled, from outside, which results in a lot of heartburn for people inside the organization. Why were we not chosen? Why did they have to get talent from outside? We have spent 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in this company. Could we not be considered for these positions? Are we not talented enough? Or why did the company not invest in us to grow us to the next level while they are getting people from outside? So all these questions come up and do not reflect very well on talent management practices. Then, as I mentioned, they may or may not work out. Replacements tend to be unsuccessful, particularly in companies which have a very closed culture, which have a very intense and dense culture. So people who come from different industries or different cultures, or perhaps a more open-ended environment, they may not get adjusted very easily. I'm not sure if I shared, a small anecdote about a Japanese car manufacturing company. So typically, in this company, they had people who joined as management trainees, and then they spend most of their lives in this company. So people had spent about 20 years, 30 years in this company. Now, in one HR meeting, it was decided that they had inbred the talent. All the talent was inbred. People who had not really seen practices in other organizations. And perhaps it would be good to do a little bit of cross fertilization, because they did not have very high attrition, but still some people did leave. And instead of getting more people from Japanese or Korean automobile manufacturing companies, they should experiment with people from other industries and other uh, verticals. So this experiment was done, and quite a few people from banks were hired. These were people at a managerial cadre, assistant managers, deputy managers. All these people were brought in, and they were supported by HR to work successfully and have a good career in the automobile manufacturing company. So after some time, it was discovered that gradually all the people who had come from various banks, they left within about 2 to 3 years. There were about 25 of them who had come. Now, it was very curious that people otherwise spent 20, 30 years in the company. Why did these people from various banks leave this Japanese company? Because this company is one of the world's biggest companies. It is very proud of its very good processes. But why would anybody leave? Would anybody like to share any thoughts? I'm sharing a real life example. Maybe you have some guesses in terms of why this happened. Why did the people who came from the banking sector suddenly leave within 2 to 3 years of their coming to this company?
So one reason I can point is uh, everyone wants to keep growing, and if a person from a banking background comes into manufacturing, he may not be actually able to grow after a certain level, uh, and he will not be able to learn things in his domain.
That was Arvind.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, good point, Arvind. Anybody else?
Another thing could be that Japanese firms are pretty hierarchy driven and do not give too much of authority to the people at different levels. So maybe that culture of not speaking up or not or adherence to this hierarchy could also be something which is not of comfort to people.
Yes, Benita. Good point.
Yes,
Yes,
they
Ketan.
may not be yes, they may not be given any responsible work or job what which they would like. So
But why
probably
would
they
you
were not
get
able to
people?
get the responsible work.
But Ketan, why would you get so many people from other organizations and not give them responsible work? But okay, I mean, you have a point. Maybe it took them some time to become productive. So yeah, all of you have made good observations. Particularly Benita. So it was a issue of culture, a big issue of culture, because in a bank you would have noticed that people get promoted very quickly, and the joke is that in a bank, even the person who opens the door for you is a vice president. So banks tend to grow people quickly. Also, in banks, the funds that people handle, gives them an inflated sense of their importance. But in a Japanese company, the organization tends to be flat. And if you have been to various Japanese companies, or maybe Korean companies, you will see that people sit on very large floors, and even the very senior people, they are all sitting with their teams in an open floor. Whereas in Indian companies, you will see that people sit in cabins. All the senior people sit in cabins, and the others have cubicles, which gives them a amount of privacy. But that is not so in a Japanese company. So when people came in, they found that the working conditions were very tough. It was non-hierarchical. It was flat. Even to other than the normal holidays, Saturday was working, and any other days, if they had to take a leave, it needed about 3-4 days of prior approval. So it was a very strictly governed, regimented sort of a company. The kind of space that is available to people in banks and other service sector companies was not available, particularly in manufacturing setups. You know, things are very well planned and very schedule oriented. So these people did not find it to their taste, to their expectations, and gradually, one by one, all of them left. So, therefore, it is very important when you are doing talent management to understand what are the implications of your own culture. Very often, what happens is people, when they are in a company, they are used to their culture. They don't understand that what sort of a culture do I have, and it may or may not be easy for other people to come and adjust in my culture. So therefore, if something like that arises, what will I do to make people comfortable, to give them a soft landing and ensure that they are able to deliver fairly quickly? Then complaints about promotion decision fairness. This is a big problem, that if anybody gets promoted, very often you will see in many companies, promotions are kept secret. Generally, promotions should be a reason for people to be happy, to celebrate. But very often what happens is promotions are kept secret because it makes one person happy, but it makes 25 people unhappy. And therefore, obviously people question whether this was a fair decision or not. Why not me? Why him? Or why not my friend? So all kinds of questions get asked, and therefore this is not really shared openly. If you do not have good talent management practices, your customers may simply feel the impact of your lack of good talent management practices. Because if you do not have a motivated workforce in your company, if you do not have a skilled workforce in your company, that impact is felt by your end customer, and then later on by your client. So it's very important that you have talent management, not only to improve the well-being of your own people in the company, but also to ensure that customers retain their confidence in you. Because if you have good talent management practices, then that will reflect on the way you deal with your customers, way your processes are, and that will enhance greater customer confidence, which in turn will enhance the client's confidence, and which in turn will allow you to expand your business. Is it making sense?
Yes, sir. It is like basically employees are an extension of a corporate, and they are its brand ambassadors.
Yes, absolutely, Vinita. So these are some outcomes of talent management organizations. You identify the top talents, the directors, leaders. You identify the key functional leaders. So you have the generic leadership, then you have the functional or the domain leadership. You identify who are the department heads, senior managers, and of course, also very critically, people who are your top talents, people who are your change or transformation leaders. These are very critical people. So how do you ensure that talent management is embedded in your practices in your company, so that these are some of the dividends that you get? So a plan to meet the strategic talent needs of the business and create competitive advantage through differentiating capabilities. Okay, so it's talent management is not simply HR will deliver various services, or not how HR will introduce latest HR thinking. It's not the plan for HR development and recruitment, training, employee relations, and it's not a plan for HR internal activity. So please appreciate that talent management is actually a strategic set of activities which optimize your talent pool in the organization. It is not the regular hiring that you would do. It is not the regular training that you would do. It is not the regular succession planning. But how do you do all of this? Recruitment, training, succession planning, you know, in a way that it gives you a exponential output, so that the sum is more than the outcome is more than the sum of the parts. So all the parts make up something which adds up and becomes something very large. So that is what talent management is. It is a strategic HR. It is not simply the regular HR activities that happens. And you may have noticed that why do we talk about leadership? Why do we always talk about good leadership? Because actually, when you are working in a company or what is leading a company, it is like a Pareto analysis. The top 20% are responsible for 80% of the good things that are happening in the company. So talent management is actually a Pareto principle in HR. It ensures that the best that you are capable of gets leveraged to ensure the best in the organization. So now, very often what happens is HR is, operating in its own silo, and may or may not be connected very deeply with the business. But if HR is operating as a talent management arm, then HR practitioners, they have to be aligned to the business dynamics. So HR practitioners often, we don't have the time or opportunity to really get down into the business detail. But a good HR department will be completely aligned to the pulse of the business. They will not be operating in a silo. But unfortunately, you would have seen that very often HR kind of operates on its own. And not only HR, finance is operating on its own, operations is doing on its own, HR is doing its own thing, quality and training are doing their own thing. So when departments are not integrated, when departments are doing their own thing and following their own dynamics, what does it tell you about the company? Anybody? What does that tell you about the company?
Sir, that means the company has not a unified culture. of taking all in one direction. That is one thing.
So, Mr. Sahu, why do you think that is so?
Because all departments they are working in isolation. They are not aligned together for the common goals and objectives of the organization. So that is one aspect of a culture also, sir. That reflects a bad culture of the organization.
Yes, very good. But why do you think that's happening? Why are they pulling in different directions?
So resources are scarce, and every department is competing for the budget, and they are seeing themselves as competitors and not a team. Actually, all are interdependent.
Good, Yamini. Any other reason?
The strategic vision or mission may not be shared or understood equally by everyone.
Right.
Role ambiguity, and specifically HR seems to be just a service oriented department. Like it is not revenue generating. We feel that it is not revenue generating or contributing department in a direct way.
Yes.
So
So,
my understanding is there is a problem
yeah.
in the talent management also. The reason is like, people are pulling in different directions. So there is a lack of collaboration. And the lack of collaboration is, let's say, if a hiring is done, hiring is basically done basis the competencies which is required. So in a JD, the competencies are given, and the recruiters, they look for those competencies in the individuals, and they hire candidates. But it is not like, let's say there are two candidates within a team, and both of them they possess the same level of competency. They might develop conflict also, and as a result, the effectiveness will not be good for the team. So in order for the team to perform, in order for the business to perform, and in order for the organization to perform, the team has to complement each other. There has to be a sync between all the functions within an organization, within all the individuals within a team. So each the strength of individuals should actually add up to the group. The uh, the strength of the group should add up to the bigger group. And if it is not happening within the organization, because somehow the talent is not managed properly, definitely the situation that you told will happen in any organization. So in those cases, an intervention from the talent management side is required urgently.
Great, Arvind. You deserve a virtual chocolate.
Thank you, sir.
Good answer. So, yes, as you can see that you have the mission, vision of an organization, the strategy, the resources, uh, all of that in an organization. But uh, there are various departments, and they're all pulling in different directions. It could be, like Yamini said, due to lack of resources, or not being aligned to the mission and the strategy of the company. So it could be various reasons. Typically, one of the biggest reasons is that the company doesn't have a good talent management strategy. And even if it has, it is not being implemented properly because it doesn't have a very strong leadership. Whenever people are not aligned, they are pulling in different directions. That is a reflection on the culture of the company and the leadership of the company. So, talent management, to be effective, has to be implemented by people who have a strategic mindset, good leadership, and for talent management to work, it needs to dig deep and find out what's happening inside as well as outside. And only then will you be able to write a talent management strategy. So, therefore, alignment, strategic HR, good leadership, all of that results in good talent management strategy. So, there are two types of talent management: inclusive and exclusive. So let's see what are the characteristics of exclusive and inclusive. So exclusive is, it's not broad based, it is inward focused, it has no clear strategy, while inclusive is which includes everyone in the company, is clearly defined and healthy talent management strategy. Exclusive tends to be where it is a very casual and informal process. So year by year, there may be a meeting of HR, there may be a leadership meeting, they may decide certain things or they may not decide. So that is typically in an exclusive culture. If they don't decide, then they will just carry on last year's practices. Whereas in a more mature company where you have inclusive talent management, it is a formal, well-defined process. So the people process is as important as the business and the financial processes. So therefore, it's a formal process where the leadership sits down to discuss the leadership, the talent in the company, and how they can leverage and grow the talent, particularly those who are the top performers. How can they give them more opportunity? How can they give them more exposure? How can they give them better projects to do? So all of that is formally deliberated by the leadership. Exclusive is limited to a few individuals. Inclusive tends to be open to all employees, at least if all employees are not involved in discussing, but they are at least the subject of discussions. So every person in the company counts, and every person is enabled to succeed in the company. In exclusive talent management, there are no specific, talent areas, but in inclusive talent management, you have a number of specific areas. You have different pools. You have the high pot or the high potential people. You have learning tracks for the high potential people. How will they groom their potential so that it gets translated into performance? Last is closed development for chosen few, while inclusive talent management is an open forum. If you are good, you get X number of opportunities. You are even better, you get 2X number of opportunities. So all that is clearly defined. Okay. So let's look at a talent management framework. So sometimes we start from a bottom up. We say that, okay, this is the number of people I need. This is the kind of people I need. This is what I can get at a lateral hire. This is what I should go for at an entry level. So very often what happens is we approach a talent management strategy from a people strategy. And we start from how to at the hiring stage. But a better framework is when you start from the business outcome that you're looking at. So you basically reverse it. You don't say, I will start from hiring, but start from what is the business outcome that you're looking for. Because if you're clear about the business outcome, then it will be easier for you to know what sort of a talent do I want in the organization. So then you look at the talent outcomes. What is the broad set of people related needs, outcomes aligned with business objectives? Now, once that is decided, then you look at your qualitative and quantitative metrics, which tell you that the people you are hiring, will they be able to deliver against your business KPIs? So that is where you decide on your hiring strategy, what kind of people to hire, with what background, what level of experience, what kind of education. All of those things are defined once your talent outcomes are clear, and then you can sit and formalize your hiring and your growth plans. Next, you look at what kind of behaviors do you want to encourage? What sort of management practices? Because the behaviors, the management practices, the culture, that will define your talent outcomes. So therefore, it is very important. Remember one thing, that in any organization, it is just a set of behaviors. Every organization is a set of behaviors, nothing else. But in many organizations, certain kind of behaviors get recognized and rewarded. In certain other organizations, a different kind of behavior gets rewarded. For example, in a startup, the behavior that gets rewarded is people who are fast paced, people who are outcome based, people who are alert, agile, so that behavior is encouraged. Whereas in old traditional companies, the behavior that is expected is people who are stable, people who are steady, may not necessarily be fast paced. So therefore, your talent framework has to accept that these are the behaviors I want to promote. These are the behaviors I do not want to support. And last but not the least, what are the programs and tools that you have available to ensure that your talent outcomes are achieved and eventually your business outcomes are also achieved through your talent outcomes. So here you have HR programs, you have practices, you have training programs, you have on the job programs, you have your growth plans. So all this comes up and ensures that you are able to drive the behaviors that you want to drive in your organization, which will define the culture of your organization and which will eventually define the business outcomes of your organization. Is this making sense? Any observations? Yes, Benita, you're saying something?
So it was more of pretty jaded thing. I do not know whether it right now is the right time to comment, so I stopped. But so these all theoretical concepts sound pretty smart and very logical, but somehow when you step in the real world, it is only the I have found that most of the times in very big corporates it's a different thing, but most of the companies prefer just monetary rewards and what is expected from the people. So I do not know whether the talent management and talent strategy are important, but they seem secondary compared to monetary compensations and expectations from uh, business point of view.
Yeah, good. Yes, that's a valid observation. Anybody else would like to agree, disagree with Benita?
Sir, whenever we talk about talent strategy, totally depends upon the level of the organization. If the organization is mature and it is more systems are more defined, and their talent strategy can be used very extensively. But if we take examples of organizations which are less mature or not big, they do not usually have systems and as such, talent strategy and talent management is not developed in those organizations. So what Binita said makes sense for a smaller organizations, for specifically organizations which are bigger in size and MNCs which have individuals, employees working in different countries, and they have to manage. A proper talent strategy has to be there. Unless and until the proper talent strategy is there, only working on monetary gains will not make any difference, because you can make monetary gains in the short term, but in the bigger line, the business will collapse. So a proper talent strategy has to be there in case if the organization is big, or even if it is not that big, if they are mature, they'll have the talent strategy framework.
Great, thanks, Arvind. That's so. Benita, actually, the point that Arvind is making is that, yeah, you're right, that in smaller organizations, it is really the compensation which matters. And, the other things don't matter that much. While you are right, but when an organization wants to scale up, when an organization wants to grow, then, it cannot simply afford to keep paying. You would also notice that, like if you look at some of the bigger companies, they, while compared to smaller companies, they may be paying more, but at an average, if you compare, uh, overall global compensation ratios, you will see that larger companies tend to pay a little less, perhaps, but they will probably make other kinds of investments in you, because the point is not just have best in the market compensation, but along with compensation, there are other things that they look at, because the point is that sustainability and scalability are very important from a HR standpoint. So when you are growing as an organization, if you do not have the right skill interventions, if you do not have the right support mechanism for employees, then the organization may not be able to grow very smoothly. So therefore, I agree that yes, this is not in place in most companies. I think I've said that before. I completely agree on that. But we, as practitioners of talent management, we have to, even if it is not happening, most of this that we are discussing today, I have been working for 25 years, and I have not seen a bit of this happening. I've worked for 6 years in GE Capital. I saw most of it happening, actually even more than this happening. But in other companies that I've worked, I've not seen most of this happening. So so therefore, this is required for any company to acquire scale. Once it acquires scale, it has to have very good practices. If it doesn't, then it will fail.
Yes. So, sir, rather than the scale of the corporate, have you found that it is more how it is managed and who is the leadership? Like the older Reliance or currently Adani or other groups like almost most of the Indian MNCs are more family driven rather than professionally driven. And in that, have you found a lesser degree of TM issues? Or it is more of like, for example, Google. We look and read the talent management strategies of Google or such like fairy tales, actually.
Yeah, it is like fairy tales. Actually, it is not a fairy tale. If you see a video on the Google Office, that is a real video, not a fake video. So my nephew works in Facebook in California. So he also tells me the same thing. So it's not a fairy tale. It is actually like that. And
No, but here it seems so far-fetched. Like I have worked for, like I am a Google trainer, so I have been to their office here and I know how they behave. But that is actually seems like a fairy tale. Even if I've been there, I've visited, I've stayed there in Google office.
yes, well, yes, it really seems very far-fetched, but that is what every company should aspire for. And that's why Google has become Google. If it did not have good people practices, it could it could probably grow, but it would not have good engineering. It would not have good products, good services. But Google has all that, and that is one of the reasons why it has grown uh, like a fairy tale. Like you rightly said, their revenue has also been a fairy tale, and part of the reason why the revenue has been a fairy tale, because their talent management is a fairy tale. So all of it is together.
So, sir, like I have talked to a few professionals, and the argument that I get is that IT companies or IT industry per se can afford this kind of talent management strategies, which are not practical for other verticals. Is that correct?
I don't think so. IT company has to be like that, because at least in India, even like Indian companies like Infosys, Wipro, they have some of the very best practices. And one of the reasons they have very good practices is because day in, day out, they are working with US clients or European clients or people from Southeast Asia. So if they don't have good practices inside their company, they cannot go and tell the client that I will do this and this is going to be really, best in class, because their talent management practices also have to be best in class inside. I have most of the 25 years that I've worked, I have worked in the outsourcing business in 6 years in GE Capital, 8 years in IBM. So I can tell you that if you don't have good practices inside your company, there is no way you can be a successful IT or a BPO, you know, uh, service provider to your clients in the US, because your house has to be in order. In IT and BPO industry, they work very closely with the client. The client knows everything about you. So if you don't have good practices yourself, it's not possible for your clients to respect you and to continue to give you good business. So therefore, in the IT sector, you don't have a choice. You have to be good. But coming back to your earlier question, whether non-IT companies can also be like that, yes, there are many Tata companies. I have worked in a Tata company for a year and a half, and I would say yes, they have some of these practices. Maybe not all the practices, but at least some of them.
Okay, thank you so
Sir,
much,
just
sir.
sir,
Sure.
just to add to what you said, because I am also from IT services. I have been into IT services for about more than 16 years now,
Okay.
in India and abroad. You are right that IT, because it is closely seen by the customers, and even during the time they give projects, they see the maturity level of your company. But now I have seen, even in case if I am talking about the Indian companies, the bigger ones, they cannot afford to be random. If we do not have a system, if we do not have processes in place, if you are small, you can manage things, but bigger companies cannot manage until unless a very strong system and a process driven organization is there. The reason is, let's say, consider like Reliance. If they are into something, initially at some point when their employees strength was quite less, they could actually have been, or if they were not mature, they may had lapses in their processes. But with the current scenario, when they are trying to compete with the best companies in the world, uh, I do not think they, I mean, even talent strategy, if I think about Reliance or any other big manufacturing product development companies or even services companies, different domains, they have to be like process oriented, and they have to have the system in place. Otherwise, they can do good in one project, but they'll fail in other, and the business sustainability will definitely be a big challenge, because there will be lot of randomness. With system, you may not be earning very good in one project, but on a long, you can actually have reliability, trust, and credibility of your customers, and this is what brings business to the organization. So I think we cannot afford to not have system in place now for any bigger organization.
Exactly. Exactly. That is that is why we while some of it may seem theoretical, that's why we are studying that what is the recommended practice. Even if we haven't seen this, even if we not too many companies do this, we as HR practitioners, we need to know what is the ideal state, and whatever state we are at, how to move towards that ideal state. So that is very important. So well said, Arvind. And I hope, Benita, that kind of explains the doubt that you have.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so moving on, a typical TM process is, identifying. You start once your business goals are clear, as we saw. You identify what is the strategic intent of the company. What do we wish to do? What kind of talent do we require to do that? And then you start looking for the key people capability requirements. You could that talent could be inside, so you identify the talent pools that you have, or you develop or deploy the existing talent, and you motivate and retain, and then evaluate and review. So this is not a linear process. It is an ongoing process. It is a circular process which will keep going on. So last time, if you remember, we did this 9 blocker, and we will just kind of take a second look at it. And this is a slightly more detailed version of what we had discussed. So as you can see that you have performance on the x-axis, and potential on the y-axis, and Here you are people who are high on performance and high on potential. They are your top talents. So these are the people that talent management is primarily focused on. Who are your top talents? First of all, you identify them, and then how do you nurture this talent? How do you grow this talent? How do you make this talent more effective in the organization? So basis the performance and the potential, you have different set of people being identified. So let's say suppose somebody is very high on performance, but not high on potential. So they are valued specialists. They are domain experts, people who are okay on performance but low on potential. They are emerging specialists. uh, Another very important, along with top talent, and where the majority of your people will lie, is the cross section between middle level performance and middle level potential, which are your solid contributors. You can see over here, you can see my cursor, your solid contributors. So these guys are they are really the heart of any organization, because you cannot have top talents all over the place. Your top talents will be about top 10% or 20%, but your solid contributors are people who are the majority of the people. So the job of HR is to take them to you know higher potential and better performance. So people who are you know let's say who are second level in performance, in potential, but very high in performance, they are the emerging potential. And the third row at the bottom are people who are low on performance, low on potential, are the underperformers. People who are low on performance but have some potential, they are inconsistent performers. And people who are low on performance but very high on potential, they are generally people who are new to their role, or due to some other hurdles they have not been able to perform for some reason. So if you can see this tool, this 9 blocker is a very useful model, and it tells you who stands where in your company. So if you are able to plot everybody during an appraisal cycle on this tool, you will have a fair idea who are the solid contributors, who are the emerging potential, and who are the top talents or the rising stars of your company. And also people who may not be performing, and people who can be either supported to come up to the next level, or they can be exited from the system, depending on the culture that you have in your organization. So any observations on the 9 blocks grid or the 9 block? Okay, I will move on.
So you apply this, you can have only one person in one box. How does this go about? Or this is for individual people, like, so valued specialist, you'll have only one. If you have like whatever roles you have, you can have potential people also. This is quantifiable, like you need quantifiable data, or qualitative data can also be mapped here.
So good question, Vinita. So actually, let's say you have 100 people in your department. Now you will be plotting all the 100 people in this 9 block. Okay. And performance you will get from their KPIs. So whatever they have performed, 80% of their target, 90%, 100%, 110%. So you will get from their KPIs. Potential is slightly subjective, and it can be based on a self appraisal, manager appraisal, uh, manager's manager appraisal. So it could be from various, or maybe HR appraisal. So, so potential is slightly subjective. Performance is fairly clear from your performance KPIs. And then using that data, you plot people. You have 100 people in your department, so you plot people over here. And this is generally tied to a forced ranking. So everybody has to be put somewhere, and then you get a fair idea of where your 100 people stand, who are your best bets, who are your second line, who are your slow but steady contributors. So it gives you a very good insight into the overall headcount of the business.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Sir, I have a question here.
Yeah.
When I see this 9-box grid, let's assume a condition where an employee, he is having a lot of potential, but he's not able to perform. There can be situations like the organization's environment is not conducive for his performance, or his potential is not properly utilized. He might have been given a role where uh, there was a underperformance. So where we will put those employees? Like, I mean, I can see that this 9-box grid only works in an ideal situation, because you consider anyone who is underperformer will be low on potential. But there can be a lot of cases we can actually assume, and we can actually find in our real life also, where they are not lacking potential, but they were underperformers.
Yes. So, Arvind, basically, if somebody is high on potential but is not performing, then you have to understand the reasons why they are not performing. If there is a serious will issue, then you don't know, because that means it's a bad attitude. So they know everything, but they are not doing anything.
Right.
Or if it's a skill issue that they are interested in doing, but they don't know the tools. But otherwise, let's say, I know someone in my company who is a senior manager level, and he's very good in terms of understanding the business, in terms of a client interaction, but he's not good in terms of um, managing data and presenting it well. But in terms of his communication skills, in terms of his understanding of the business, he's very good. So because his control over numbers, because of his inability to present very well, so he doesn't get ranked as a top performer. But in terms of his insights into the business, or the different things that we can do, possibly, so we understand that he can definitely, though he's a senior manager, but he can definitely grow to next 2-3 levels if he's given the guidance and the support. So so you have to understand that where is the person getting stuck. Just because somebody has high potential but is not performing, you will have only a window of, let's say, 1 year to support the person. If the person is still not improving and still remains an inconsistent performer, or is not able to deliver, then of course, no matter what the potential is, you may want to take a hard call. But yeah, so performance is slightly subjective, and many companies don't even evaluate people on potential. Sorry, potential is very subjective, and many companies do not even evaluate people on potential. But if you do that, your the returns that you will get are very.
Sir, but where do we place those people who were like, high on potential, but were not able to perform at all? Like in this 9-box grid, where we can put, let's say if we are doing
Yeah,
a 9-box grid for the
yeah,
employees.
they will be in,
Box number
box.
6.
They will be 6 if they can 3 and 6. These are the two boxes they will be. They will be high potential, mid potential, but performance is zero.
Sir, box number 6 may be due to placement issue or deployment issue. They have the potential, but they are not placed in the right role or right place. That may be also due to
Yes,
that.
it could. Exactly. So somebody, let's say, is expected to do, a frontline selling role, but this person is really a back-end operations guy, and we have put him into frontline selling, which he's not able to deliver. And then we feel that he seems to have potential, but his performance is not improving at all because he's not getting the sales numbers.
Sir, I can understand that a performance lag of an employee, he could be put in the 6th level. But what about if the organization environment was not conducive? Let's say my role, my job responsibilities depend highly on some sort of technical availability. Let's say internet has to be very high speed. And if the organization is not able to provide me high speed internet at my home, I'll not be able to perform my duties in the way. So my performance will definitely depreciate. In that case, will I be able to put that in this 9-box grid? Because there can be situations I can think about which we may not be able to put in this grid according to the metrics of potential and performance?
So, Arvind, that is a technical snag that the company is not investing in a good Wi-Fi, or the company has a culture which is, perhaps not geared towards improving or recognizing somebody's potential. So when that happens, then it's unfortunate. But of course, the company cannot change its culture overnight. And sometimes high potential people are not able to adjust in companies with poor culture, and they leave. So they are not able to deliver, and they just leave.
Sir, the reason why I actually put this is because during the COVID times, I actually saw that within a meeting, high-profile meeting of HR heads, they came up with like each individual employee of an organization, they actually represent a business unit, because everyone is working from their home. At one point of time, they were working from their home, and so all the facilities that they actually have at their home, the organization has to be responsible. In case if they are not going to be responsible, I'm talking about organizations which were quite mature. So in case if they are not responsible, definitely they cannot expect the outcome from the employee sitting. So the part of, one of the work of the HR was also to see if all the business units gets the proper availability of resources that is required to deliver their work in an efficient way.
Right, absolutely. So that is very, very critical. I have often seen people who work in very process-driven companies, and it's easier to work in a process-driven company because everybody knows what they're supposed to do, what can be expected from others, what their team is supposed to do. But when these people who are successful in process-driven companies, they go to companies which don't have a healthy process, where every manager has to use his own enterprising skills to get the results. So they start failing in those companies because those companies don't have that culture of supporting you with a strong process. So there you have to become a entrepreneur yourself, to become like a businessman, that I want this result, and they are not used to it, because earlier company that they were working, it was very process driven. Everybody knew what they had to do. In the new company, the culture is not there. So I have seen very good people with high potential, people from very good institutes, not succeeding because of the culture of the company.
Correct. Completely agree.
So I want to ask one thing. As far as performance is concerned, we can map it through KPIs. But as far as potential is concerned, how we can map it apart from the seniors' feedback? Because seniors' feedback might be biased also. So how we can ensure that we assess the potential in the right way?
So, Shivani, as I was mentioning, that this is slightly subjective first. Second is to reduce the subjectivity. What some companies do is that they have a panel rather than an individual. So the bias gets neutralized to an extent.
Okay.
Okay, so in IBM, it's called TBDM, which means team-based decision making. So one individual cannot decide. You may be leading a people of 5 people, and you may give a recommendation that I give the best recommendation to these people, but the final rating is decided by a panel of you and your colleagues along with HR.
Okay, sir.
In one of the organizations I was working, they rated our potential based on stretch assignments that we undertook.
That's a very valid way of looking at it. Provided the organization, did provide them with stretch assignments, and everybody got an equal opportunity at stretch assignments, or people who took it up, they were encouraged. Sometimes what happens is you take up a stretch assignment and your manager says, you are not able to do what you are doing, and now you want to do a stretch assignment also. Stop doing it. Or sometimes managers, when the stretch assignment is not benefiting that particular manager, it is benefiting some other department, they say that this is not required. So organization and the management also has to be supportive.
Yes, so this is one other way, like there it was part of our KRA only.
Okay, so moving on. So TM strategies generally tend to be company specific, depending on their needs, their vision, their mission. Talent identification requires very careful planning, mature workforce. Uh, you can have multiple development interventions, but they need to be tailored to the individual and group needs. Successful programs ensure that each individual has a personalized plan, and succession planning, career development, talent management, these are all completely aligned with each other. So these are some important call outs. So these are some common strategies that are adopted by various companies. So it's just a set of observations taken from various companies. So one is create your G3, which is basically your CEO, CFO, CHRO. Uh, so basically, what it's trying to say is the strategy is that your leadership should be very strong and completely aligned to business challenges and the people strategy of the company. So your leadership should not be going in different directions. If the leadership is not aligned, then that company and the people in that company go through a tough time. So therefore, your G3 or your top leadership, they need to be aligned, and they need to be working closely on the talent management processes. Uh, Next is cultivate the critical 2%. So as I was saying that your top 10% or your top 20%, they drive exponential value in the company. Now, who are these people? What is your mechanism of identifying those people? So these things are very important. So therefore, you should cultivate that critical 2%, that top performers. And they should not be allowed to leave your company, in the sense that they should be given the best assignments, exposure. Wherever you have a challenging problem, give it to them to solve. So, but net ensure that you nurture the top 2% of your company. If they stay with your company will go places. If they leave your company, then your company will be losing exceptional talent. Uh, Next is focus the board on talents. So your board is the ultimate decision-making body in every company, and the board should be concerned about the talent in the company. And the CHRO should regularly present to the board. The board should know what is going on, should sign off all the people strategies, should give their inputs. So the board should be completely aligned to the strategy. Next is make people decisions based on data. So Edward Deming, the guru of quality, had said that in God we trust, everybody else must bring data. So, which means that data is what tells you what is right, what is wrong, what is black, what is white. So, HR analytics is, should be used insightfully, and you should deploy data to make smart decisions. Uh, your entire workforce, you should have data on that. You should know whose performance, who are the top 2%, how to grow them, how to get them more assignments, more exposure. So all those things should be available to you from a data standpoint. Treat HR as a strategic partner. So your HR business partner or HRBP, they are your talent value partners, and if they are given strong responsibilities, if the business leader has faith in them, then HR has an important role to play. I don't know about your experience, but I have come across some leaders who don't think very well of HR. And I have come across some leaders who think HR is absolutely critical and they use HR very effectively. And the second category of leaders, I have seen that they tend to be more successful. Any thoughts?
Sir, I just give a example of the my experience is working in an IT company. I mean, I was working with Pero Systems, which was actually then converted to Dell Services, and we were in the development team. And people in the development team, most of them, they thought that HR is nothing and they don't do anything. They just come to us whenever they have a requirement of any hiring, and uh, they are like, only providers of samosas, chutneys, or snacks to people in the technical team. Uh, but uh, it is only because unless and until you go to a level of maturity where you understand what the specific roles of individuals are, you may not be able to appreciate the independent individual contribution of each function. Uh, so now when I actually, mean, that was even my thought and belief at one point of time when I was very young, when I started working in software programming. Uh, but when I started interacting with the HR heads, CHROs and all, and then I understood the important decisions that they were able to make. Like, HR is actually very big. We even break the HR into different, sub functions like talent management, and what are the ways they think and how strategically they come up with different type of decisions which are going to impact the organization at different levels. And then I realized, so it is just like, if we consider a mason who is laying bricks on to make walls in a building, he'll consider that I have made this building, but it is not the mason who has laid the bricks who made the building. It is the architect who developed the whole plan, how the building has to be made, where the steel and what type of steel has to be put. So similarly, to understand and appreciate the value of each function, a person needs to have that level of maturity. So I would say, in case if a person is not able to appreciate, it is not the problem of those persons. It is the problem of the person who is actually coming with the approach where he says that they don't do anything because he is not mature enough to understand their contribution.
Very good point, Arvind. Yes, you are right. Very often people feel that HR is meant to motivate people by having some samosas and chai and making a rangoli during festival and things like that. But HR is a very critical role, and people, business leaders or people who understand the criticality of HR, they are able to be more effective. So you are absolutely right. uh, I will share an example of an ops manager. He used to handle one of the biggest clients. He used to handle the Amazon account for where I was working. And whenever in operations, people were handling different clients, and whenever they needed to increase their revenue, sometimes I used to look after training. They would come and say that your people are in training, but people who have spent some time, let them come out and be in production. That way I will be able to add revenue. But this person who used to handle the Amazon account, he would never ever break the process. He would say HR has to hire right, training has to train right, quality has to evaluate. Only then they can come into production. No matter how much revenue I lose, I don't care for revenue, but I will not shortcut the process. And he understood the value of these softer aspects of HR training, and he did not perhaps earn the kind of revenue some of his other colleagues did. But when Amazon came to India, they gave a substantial part of their business to my previous company. And this person who was handling the Amazon account, Amazon said that we want only him to handle our account. And he grew about 3-4 times uh, faster than his colleagues did, simply because he refused to short circuit the process and he understood the impact of these other departments, which very often people think, oh, these are all the support functions. What can they do? But he understood the importance. So therefore, that is a case of the right emphasis getting rewarded. Okay, so moving on, another good talent management strategy is developing talent through projects. So I think Benita mentioned that people do stretch assignments, or somebody else did, or not. So yes, you can do projects, and projects will always help you differentiate between people who are your top talents and people who are not. Then give employees the skills they need. So most of Gen Z jobs do not exist. There needs to be a shift from job skilling to broader upskilling. So the kind of jobs that we are doing is changing very rapidly. Earlier, you had the typist sitting in every office. You don't see a typist anymore. Earlier, we would just look at an Excel. Today, everybody is doing data analytics. So the nature of jobs are changing, and therefore we should not upskill ourselves for one particular job, but for a broader set of skills. And last but not least, deal with talent shortages by scanning industries for the right talent. And your talent base, if it is strong, it is equal to having a strong asset base. So that will enable you to perform better. So any other observations on some of these strategies which are mentioned over here? Okay, if not, we will move on. So Toyota is the world's largest car manufacturer. They compete with Volkswagen, but I think now they are ahead. They are about $200 billion revenue. So Toyota has very strong people practices, very strong. So like earlier we were debating that if a company becomes big, so it has to have very strong people processes. So the larger you are, your products and your services are out there in the market. For example, a Toyota car, people will buy a Toyota car only if it is a good car. People will use Google services only if those are good services to use. They are helpful and useful. So uh, large companies cannot afford not to have a stable talent management process. So some pillars of the Toyota way, as it is called, one is respect for people. So respect others, make every effort to understand each other, take responsibility, do your best to build mutual trust. Teamwork, stimulate personal and professional growth, share opportunities for development, maximize team and individual performance. Then Toyota brought up the concept of continuous improvement, which is now used by many companies and many industries. So the Japanese word is kaizen. So challenge long-term vision to meet challenges with courage and creativity to realize your dreams. Kaizen to improve business operations all the time by always trying for innovation and evolution. And what they call genbutsu, going to the source to find the facts and to make correct decisions and consensus. So this is very often what happens is that if I am a manager, I ask my assistant manager what is going on. He tells me something. He asks the team leader what is going on. He tells him something, and what is going on the production floor may be something different. So we play Chinese whispers. So here, what is being said is go to the source of that information, and then so that the chances of having wrong information and thereby taking a wrong decision does not arise. Okay. So these are some pillars of what is called the Toyota way. These are some aspects of their training program. So like we saw that in GE there are bottom 10% people who are asked to leave the company. In Toyota there is no bottom 10%. They believe in training everyone. Of course, it's not that they treat everybody very softly. They are also very hard taskmasters, but they enable people as well. So the training is very strong, and it is delivered in such a way that nobody can fail unless he wants to fail. So so training is treated as fundamental. There are no budgets slashed. Instead, budgets are replenished for training. There cannot be any compromise on training budgets. So therefore, even in the most difficult times, Toyota does not slash any training budget. They believe in creating fundamental skills, So tasks are broken into smaller components and people learn something in small bites so that they are more comfortable. Toyota, as you can understand, they have very standardized work processes, so they try to reduce subjectivity as much as possible. They have a ratio of one trainer to every 10 employees. So you can imagine how many trainers they have. So for every 10 employees, they want to have a trainer. The trainer-trainee dialogue, this is a part of the dialogue which the trainer has with his team. The idea is to put the trainee at comfort, so the trainee should be comfortable because they feel that if you frighten the trainee, if you scare him, if you bully him, then you will not get the best output from the trainee. They keep verifying the learning success through various assessments and other means at regular follow-ups. Another point very important is that the master trainer position that is very difficult to achieve in Toyota. And the master trainer may be a trainer, but he is well paid and well recognized as an expert. So the master trainer has a lot of respect in the Toyota system. And it is not easy to become a master trainer for anyone. So this is a very key position. It's not just a casual position. And what Toyota does is at every level, every supervisor prepares two reportees to take up her responsibilities. So these are some, practices from the Toyota management model or the Toyota way, as it is popularly called. So, any questions, any observations? Has anybody gone to a Toyota floor and seen some of these things?
Sir, any idea of this trainer-trainee ratio, like in Toyota 1:10, about other companies, other big companies or reputed companies? Any idea you have about this ratio?
It tends to be 1:75, 1:100, 1:150, sometimes 1:50, but approximately.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we will move on. Sorry. So here is a template, talent management planning template. So you here on the left column, you have what are the company priorities and then what are the talent implications. So you can see, you can jot down this company priorities and talent implications. So what I would want you to do, this is your homework, put in 4 company priorities and how will talent support these 4 priorities. Okay, so the talent, talent, this is just dummy data, but otherwise, let's say it is not showing, but anyway, so on the left hand column you have your 4 business priorities and on the right hand column you jot down what are the talent management solutions for those. Okay, so suppose I want to set up a new factory, so talent management would be get some of your top performers to the new site and have a mix of old employees who will ensure continuity of culture and get new employees as well. So make a maybe a 20-80 ratio of having old employees who are some of the good talents in the company and getting your new people. So that would be the talent management implication. Also putting your talent management processes in place. Or let's say the company wants to grow at 20% top line. So you say that talent management would mean that we have to hire more headcount, train more headcount, and make them capable of handling the growth that is coming. So for every business decision, there is a talent management implication. So what you need to do is basically your top four business decisions and what are the talent management implications for that. So that's your homework, and we will meet again next Sunday, same time. Any questions? Any questions, anyone? So Mo, you have been very quiet today, and you are a OD person, if I remember clearly.
Yes, that's right. And I've been listening. I'm like, I need to understand how things are happening. So maybe after that, I'll start talking. So I was I was quite interested with the 9-box model. I was, waiting for you to pick it up. So I found it very interesting. So now I would like to plot something on it for myself and see how much I have understood from it.
Okay.
Yeah, and also this template, I found that very interesting. So maybe, I can put in some thinking on that and come out with something interesting.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mo. Yamini, you have written some observations. Would you, how TM helps in training and development as well while choosing the subject? The opinion was OD and change is useful for TND, but TM is pure HR function. Okay, so see, training and development is also an HR function, and talent management is also HR function. But I think Benita had shared a point that these are not there in most companies. So you are right. So OD and change management is talent management is still there, but OD and change management tends to be there in lesser number of companies, and many companies don't even understand what all OD involves and how do you do change management. So so talent management has a direct implication on training and development because uh, how you manage good talent is one of the key levers that you have is the kind of training programs that you have, the kind of learning interventions that you have. So therefore, there is a very close connect between talent management and learning and development. They go hand in hand because the whole purpose of learning and development is that you are growing the talent in the company. That's why it's called learning and development. Why development? Development is not something that is happening now. Development is future focused. So I want to develop the talent in the company. And next 5 years it's going to be like this, next 10 years it's going to be like this, so that's why it's called development. And learning is something which is happening now, and how do you sustain the impact of this learning? So therefore talent management and learning and development are like they are siblings, if not cousins. Okay, great. So very nice interacting with you. I think today's session was very interactive. Thanks, Arvind. Thanks, Mr. Sahu, Priyanka, Mo, Benita, Yamini, and Ketan. And thanks to the ISTD team and Arun. So look